And here we have Sonic and the Secret Rings, which released for the Wii in 2007. I actually remember getting this game back when it came out. I couldn't have been more than like 10. But I was just really excited that there was a new Sonic game for the console I had just gotten, the Nintendo Wii, and I actually did like the game as a kid. I remember not loving it, but for the most part I enjoyed it. Then I came back to this game as a teenager, and then as an adult, and went, man, what the hell was I thinking? So this game was part of a Sonic sub-series that was 2 games known as the Sonic Storybook series, and it would be based off of Arabian Nights. And it saw our blue boy getting sucked into the world of Arabian Nights and taking on this evil genie. I never really cared much for the story. Like, whether I was a kid or an adult, I really just had a hard time feeling anything but indifference for what was going on. Yeah, other Sonic characters show up as, like, famous Arabian Night characters, but I just couldn't care less. It's probably one of the most consistent thoughts I've had about this game from playing it as a child all the way till now. That, or that the music is incredible. Seriously, the music in Sonic and the Secret Rings is so good. 7 Rings in Hand might be like my favorite Sonic song of them all, and that really is saying something. The music is hands down the best aspect of this entire game. It's a hell of a lot better than actually playing it. Maybe it's because this game came out during the motion control craze, but I just have such a hard time imagining myself actually enjoying this gameplay at all. So there's a few key things to know about Sonic and the Secret Rings. The entire game takes place on rails, where Sonic will go on a predetermined path forward, kind of like Crash Bandicoot, but much, much worse. Moving backwards is really something you're not going to be doing here. The game also uses a mission structure. It isn't just level to level. You actually have to do a bunch of missions. Sometimes you're collecting things, sometimes it is just point A to B, but a lot of the time you find yourself replaying areas over and over to do other objectives or other platforming challenges. And let's talk about the platforming. It's very different from like any other Sonic game or even most 3D platformers. For whatever reason, Sonic has to like charge his jump. If you just tap the jump button, he does this tiny shitty little jump. You have to like hold it down, let him charge for a second, let him hold in that fart, and then he can actually jump a normal distance, and it just feels super awkward and stilted. And speaking of awkward and stilted, let's get to the elephant in the room, the motion controls. I'll just be blunt about it, the motion controls kind of ruin this entire game, especially if you're coming back to it in current day. So Sega thought it would be a good idea if you control Sonic like a car. You have to hold the Wii remote sideways, tilting left and right to make Sonic move left and right. You have to shake the Wii remote, and all of this just goes about as bad as you would expect. When turning left and right is a pain in the ass and is incredibly unresponsive, you know you're not in for a good time. The controls are, simply put, just wildly unresponsive. They're just incredibly inaccurate, and a 3D platformer should not be controlled like this. The bad controls, poor feel, and just awkward jumping just kind of ruin this entire experience. If the controls weren't as bad as they were, I would say this was a just very mediocre game, but thanks to the controls, it goes from mediocre to just plain bad. But even if the controls weren't ass, this game really wouldn't have all that much going for it. The level design is very basic, it's simplistic, it never really does anything you haven't seen before in a platformer, and it's clear they kept things simple for the motion controls. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it utilizes a mission structure, and you end up playing through the same areas over and over, and some of these objectives are just plain obnoxious. Like when you have to get the dinosaur eggs, you can just fuck right off with that mission. They try to give Sonic these other abilities as you play through the game, these other skills. I don't know why I said it like that, it sounds like Skittles. These skills you get, but this doesn't really shake things up or make the game any, better. Funny enough, this game actually had a multiplayer mode that was kind of like Mario Party, but these minigames, gosh, you think the main game had poor controls? You ain't seen these minigames. The world is not ready for these minigames all these years later, and I'm not going to talk about them. So needless to say, this is one of Sonic's weaker 3D experiences. While it isn't unbelievably terrible, I absolutely cannot recommend this game. Like most Sonic games, I recommend the soundtrack and never actually trying the game. But here we are 15 plus years later, and we still haven't figured out who's gonna rock the place.